Hey, what's going on, guys? What's happening? What's happening? Welcome to Pillow Talk with Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I'm here with my lovely wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins. How's everybody doing today? I hope you guys are doing well. Dr. Alicia, can you hear me, ma'am?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, great, great. Because I know you're in the other office. She's pretty close to me, but we're actually doing the podcast from separate rooms today. And so I want to say hi to Jermaine and thankful and grateful to El Hodge and Elijah Cox. How you doing? Please, please, please hit the thumbs up button and also shout out the city that you're from. Let us know what city you're coming from. And so I want to come in here and just hop in and ask everybody if you have heard about this interesting kind of back and forth that's happening with Irv Gotti, who's the CEO of Murder Inc., and Ashanti, who is a great singer, who still is a great singer, and who still looks great, for her age and everything else. Give me a yes in the chat if you kind of saw some of this, and then I'll explain why we're having this conversation because I know some people would say, well, why are y'all talking about this? Well, let me ask my wife also, as Rico's checking in from Chicago and Troy's out of Charlotte. So, babe, have you followed any of this? Have you seen any of this stuff with Urban Ashanti?
Yeah, I've been following it for quite some time now. And I don't know why I hadn't mentioned it to you before, but yeah, it's something I've been looking at. And yeah, you want to know what I think about it, or what do you want? You
Well, let
just
me ask you this: let's start with the basics. What do you think about Ashanti? Like, what as far as an artist? Like, was she somebody that you really listen to a lot,
yes,
or
come
what?
on, love Ashanti. Back in the late '90s, she had all those hits out, and she was a great singer and great performer.
I
Um,
keep
but
on running back to you.
I love it. And she had a songs. Who was that? The guy, the rapper she was collaborating with. What's his name? Was it
What
Ja?
would I be without my baby? I'm a brother, baby. I
Such a
bet I
great.
really. Every thug needs a lady, baby. Remember
Come
that?
on, they made the best duo,
I
and
I hated all those Ja Rule Ashanti songs, and they sounded alike.
yeah, but they were good, and they were cute. Like, she was like cute and dancing around and singing all like her voice was just it really her voice and his voice just worked. It seemed to work for me. It worked for me. So
It was
I
a
didn't
nice it
like
was
that.
a nice balance. It was a balance like salty and sweet or hard and soft. And also it reminded me like of a black version of like Grease with Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta. Tell me more. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of what that was, and I think that's why they did so well. Is because you had the masculine and the feminine. Is it? What do you think about that? Do you
Yeah,
think my
I
theory
mean,
is on point?
for the most part, I think it was just positive. It was really, it was just nice to see. You are so, they actually recreated that. Look at that. I hadn't even realized it, but it was just nice to see. I liked it because it was a nice breath of fresh air. Because I think in the late '90s we had Lauren Hill, we had a lot of other people that were doing like some really good positive music back then. So bravo, bravo to them. That's what I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
I think that I didn't like the music. I'm not gonna lie. It didn't do anything for me. It drove me crazy. I felt like honestly, I was hearing the same song over and over again. But I can't deny the success that they had, right? It's like I have to acknowledge that. And it seemed to me that they figured out, like, okay, this is our formula, and we're
Mhm.
going to just ride this sucker till the wheels fall off. What do you think? I mean, I
Yeah,
can
I
feel
mean,
like I heard a lot of songs that sounded alike.
yeah, so you're speaking from your own experience. I think if you look and see the success of their songs, you'll just say it's just not for you. But a lot of people enjoyed the music, and it just seemed to have just stopped all of a sudden. And it seems like a lot was going on back in the late '90s with hip hop, and so Irv Gotti to me is giving us a nostalgic trip down memory lane with Ja Rule. And I did see the interview. I think it was some show where you get on there and you drink alcohol and talk a bunch of stuff.
Are you talking about Drink Champs?
I think that's where I saw Ja Rule and Irv Gotti. They were talking about the good old days and they were chopping it up and they were drinking. And I think that's when it came up about Ashanti. The topic of Ashanti came up. How could it not? You know, and I think that's when they started telling stories.
Ah, okay.
Did you see
So
the
I did not, I can't really watch a whole episode of Drink Champs.
video?
Not because I don't like the show. I respect it, but it's like I think I have a thing with black men sitting around drinking all day because I just grew up around that shit, and I saw too many of my uncles becoming alcoholics and winos and
Oh,
drug addicts, and it just didn't
you
appeal to me just
saw,
growing up.
you
I feel like that alcohol is too much of a part of American culture. So that's my own bias, right? Like I'm not putting that on anybody else, but I am saying that I kind of feel like as black men, this idea that that we show our masculinity by how much we can drink and smoke. I just think that's a little flawed. I still remember we were in Guyana and we sat down with that dude who I strongly suspect was a drug dealer, because because of the way he was balling out of control. And he offered me a drink, and I said no, thank you. And he said, in Guyana, men will make fun of you if you don't drink. And I said, I don't give a shit. Like that to me made me that much clearer to say no. I know I'm a man. I don't need you to confirm my manhood by getting me to put poison in my body that's going to make me unaware of my surroundings and put me into dangerous situations that could get me killed or arrested. Again, I'm getting triggered here, so I'm gonna stop talking about it. But I know too many black men who got drunk and got shot at the club, or who got drunk and high and killed somebody at the club, or got beat by a cop and murdered by a police officer because they was sitting there high and drunk all the time, just doing nothing. Like, so to me, alcohol just so I don't hate Drink Champs, right? I respect the people that run the show, but I think the idea of sort of sitting around drinking and talking shit, I've seen it, but it doesn't come off to me as like the most productive use of our energy as men. So I'm gonna stop my preaching with that, and I don't want to offend anybody, but that's honestly how I feel, and I'm standing by that.
okay, so what I was trying to say is that for you, when you see anything that's paired with the introduction of any sort of alcohol, in your mind goes to that tragedy. In your mind, you associate a drink with all of these awful things happening with Black men, and so that's really insightful that you know that about yourself. But for other people, alcohol represents a range of things, and so I think just be clear that allow other people to be able to have a different interpretation with alcohol. They could say, if you have one drink, or if you drink responsibly, or if you drink in a setting that is it is responsible, that other people can have a different association with alcohol. So that was your association, that was what you saw, and I'm glad that you are self-disclosing that, so I appreciate that. But just know that that's your sort of view on things, and that there's other views that's just as good and just as valid as yours. That's all I wanted to.
Oh, absolutely. I don't. No, no, no. Let's just be 100% clear. I ain't never. I'm not the guy that's going to wag my finger at people that are drinking. I'm going to be the designated driver. That's it. Like so.
I like having you with me.
Yeah. So to me, I feel like the
Mhm.
fact that I'm not drinking means it's like okay, as a black man, it's one less thing I got to worry about. Like there's so many other vices you can get caught up in. Like I've noticed the four things that tend to bring a black man down, in my experience, are being overcommitted to things related to sex, drugs, alcohol, and gambling.
Right.
And if you do any of those things out of moderation, you become an addict. And for example, when you hear about Allen Iverson, getting drunk and going to the casino and blowing $100 million, or or you hear about somebody that's that where they've gotten involved with too many women and they got 18 babies, mamas, and all kinds of financial problems. Like so, in my view, it's not a matter of saying like I want to pretend to be pious and pure and perfect. It's a matter of being aware and alert, and being a leader and not a follower, right? So, to me, alcohol always tasted nasty. I didn't like the taste when I was a kid, so I was like, why in the hell am I going to teach myself to drink something that's nasty and unhealthy just so I can fit in? And in fact, actually, and I think everybody and I want to encourage those who don't drink to feel like that's okay. There's actually a study. If you go to addictioncenter.com, they said that alcohol is actually 3 times more harmful than cocaine or tobacco. And I think that they say that it's more harmful because we take it so lightly. We just think drinking is not a big deal, and you have a lot of deaths that occur. You have more deaths related to alcohol than any other drug. And I can say this all day, and what's going to happen is you're going to have people that are going to get mad at me for saying that because they have a different relationship with it. But I just say, when you take it out of the equation, it just changes so many things in our lives. Like, look at how many college campus rapes happen. I think 90-something% of all the sexual assaults that occur when there's alcohol around, because the boys are not thinking logically and the girls are in vulnerable situations. Next thing you know, there's an unfortunate incident, and you got to sort through that. And sometimes somebody gets victimized out of that. So my general idea is like, hey, if I could just cut this out, it's almost like not eating sugar. Like sugar, eating sugar doesn't make you a bad person, because I eat plenty of it. But if I cut sugar out, I'd probably live longer and I'd be a much healthier person.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is that I don't know why people would get mad because someone else has a different point of view. To me, I don't even understand why people would get mad at that. But the thing is that there's nothing wrong with sex, right? What's wrong with it is when it just goes, it takes over your life, and it's used in a way that's kind of harmful to you and the people around you. There's nothing wrong with gambling. There's nothing wrong with alcohol in and of itself. It's just, if you indulge a little too much, because, sex, alcohol, gambling, a lot of people use that as a celebratory moment, right? And so, of course, you don't want to live there and be controlled by all of that. You want to be able to be responsible. And I think what you're talking about is not necessarily just alcohol. I think what you're talking about is just adults being responsible for their behavior.
Yeah.
That's just what it sounds like. And so, that's unfortunate that that triggers you in that way. Like,
Yeah, you are
something for you to kind of look at. But I think what's really happening is this being responsible for your behavior. And I mean, if we want to get into the topic today, the issue with Irv Gotti is just in this sort of kind of atmosphere. He felt that he needed to talk intimately about his private relationship with Ashanti, apparently, and a lot of people have thoughts about that. What did you think about that?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Thanks for bringing me back on point. And by the way, before we move on, I want to remind everybody you are listening to Pillow Talk with Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins, and this is where we're both professors, so we like to just have conversations that we hope are insightful about things that are happening in the world, particularly in the areas of love and money. Dr. Alicia is a licensed therapist. She sees couples on a regular basis, as well as families and individuals. And my PhD is in finance. And so areas that relate to love and money, we love to talk about these things. So let's jump in, hit the thumbs up button. Everybody take a second, please hit the thumbs up button. So let's talk about Irv Gotti and Ashanti. So here's the interesting thing about this, right? So I'm gonna throw something out at you point blank. I want to ask everybody, give me a yes or no in the chat. If you agree or disagree with this statement. Okay, so there's a conversation now that where basically people are saying, why is Irv Gotti talking about Ashanti? Keep Ashanti's name out your mouth. Why are you talking about Ashanti? You dated Ashanti. I guess they dated 20 years ago. And he's been telling a lot of stories. Every interview is Ashanti, Ashanti, Ashanti. Now, and he's explained kind of why he's done that. But I did think it was kind of odd too when I sort of saw that. I personally would never do that to somebody I dated a long time ago. But I'd be curious to ask everybody, do you think that there's like a double standard? And the reason I ask about the double standard is because you've got a lot of shows out here. You got shows like the Real Housewives, Basketball Wives. You've got docuseries, whether it's extreme things like Surviving R. Kelly to What's Love Got to Do with It with Ike and Tina Turner, where women are encouraged to tell their stories about the men that they've been with. There's a whole billion-dollar industry of women on reality shows, basically because of the relationships they had with famous men, talking about their experiences with those men, telling their stories about their experiences with those men. So do you all think that there's a double standard? Give me a yes or no in the chat, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, dear. But like really, I wondered if there's a double standard, because I see women all the time, talking about their relationships they've had with famous men. So when the script is flipped, it seems that everybody's offended and shocked that he would do this. What do you think?
Well, I mean, the thing is that Ashanti's not upset about it. I mean, people have asked her. They said, "What do you think about Irv Gotti talking about your relationship?" From my understanding, is that she's like fine with it. She's like, okay, if he wants to, it doesn't seem like she is very uncomfortable with what he has been saying about their relationship. So I
Hmm.
don't know why would everyone else be outraged if she herself doesn't really seem to have a big issue with it. It doesn't seem like it really bothers her so much.
Well, I'd like to ask everybody a question in the chat. Yes or no? If you had, would you be offended? Like, do you think it's inappropriate? Like, if you have an ex, think about somebody you dated 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, and imagine that they were doing lots of interviews, and all they did was talk about you and tell stories about you and your relationship and the first time y'all had sex and what the first date was like and everything else. How yes or no? Would you feel like that was okay? Yes or no? That would not be cool. What do y'all think? And I want to ask everybody that because when I think about shows like Basketball Wives and others, I remember when I first saw Basketball Wives, I remember thinking, I wonder how their husbands or ex-husbands or ex-boyfriends feel about them profiting from the relationship that they had. Like literally most basketball wives, the only reason they're on the show is because of who they dated, who they were married to. They're eating off of that. They're eating off the name of that person. And I personally wouldn't enjoy that. I've seen some athletes who said that openly. They said, "Look, I don't like my wife being on any of these shows." So I really kind of felt for it. I didn't agree with what Irv was doing. I kind of felt like honestly, I feel like that's a little tacky. I think that what happens between you and that other person is between y'all. But it ain't like he's the first one to do this.
Yeah, remember Superhead? Remember
Oh Lord Jesus, not Superhead. Did you bring up Superhead?
Oh, I read that book. I read that book from cover to cover. I was
Did
really like,
you?
yeah, I was getting the tea on that one. But
Wow.
she didn't tell all the names, but she was telling some names, boy. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you
That's
don't remember that book?
I remember
I don't remember her
Superhead.
real name.
I remember her book. I remember her, what she was famous for. Um, I also remember being just surprisingly really impressed with an article that she wrote for I don't know if it was Vanity Fair, so because you know how it is. The more ratchet a black person is, the more white people just think that they're awesome. Like they like when Lizzo and people like whatever you do, the more debaucherous your stuff is, the more they'll put you ahead of like a decent black woman who's actually trying to be known for her brain, whereas she's known for her head. But but yeah, with Superhead, I do remember her making a lot of money, probably millions of dollars, by telling stories, private stories about the men she'd been with, and I just think that's kind of tacky. And I think that if that was a man doing that, saying, "Look, let me tell you about all the famous women I've slept with," I don't think the women would be so cool with that. And I just wonder why where this double standard kind of comes from.
Yeah, was there was it Bobby Brown wrote a tell-all book?
Mm,
Bobby Brown, do you remember when you met with my mom and she was talking about the book she read?
yep, yep,
Bobby Brown, it was Bobby Brown, right? He did a tell-all book about all the women he was with.
yeah, yeah. And I
We had
thought
a
that,
whole conversation about how tacky it is to kiss and tell. Remember, we were talking about you don't kiss and tell. That's just so tacky. You don't
yeah,
remember?
I wouldn't. I feel like, and here's the thing too. This is just taking it back to everybody who's listening. Uncle Boyce advice. You're the relationship expert, but I'm just the OG who has something to say about this. I would encourage anybody, especially those of you who like to keep your business private, don't ever date somebody who's going to kiss and tell. I know it's hard to make hard and fast rules, and I'm sure you have something to say about that. But I would just tell everybody, and I'm gonna say this I'm not super famous. I'm more internet famous, but I do go to cities around the world and people recognize me on the street. So, I'm not a private citizen in that regard. And I can just tell you when I was single and I was looking to mingle and trying to decide what type of woman I wanted to be next to, I looked at how that woman carried herself. I looked at also, things like intelligence levels and attractiveness, but then I would also pay attention to your discernment. To me, part of class is knowing what should be private and what should be public. You know, that's so, so if you taking booty shots on Instagram, that wasn't my style. I mean, I applaud everybody's freedom and right to do whatever they want, but I believe that men who are and women too, who are strategic and intelligent, have something to lose. They don't want to be around somebody who's going to kiss and tell. So if you're going to go out publicly and tell the whole world everything about your ex-husband, or spill all the tea on your ex-boyfriend because you feel like you got done wrong, that's gonna, I think, repel a lot of decent people from wanting to be with you. I don't know. I'd love to hear everybody in the chat. Let me know what y'all think about that. But go ahead, Beck.
Yeah, I think here's the conundrum here. If you have an experience, okay, so for instance, you had an experience while you were at Syracuse University, okay, and some of the experiences you had there were positive, and some of the experiences you had there were not so great. And but what happens is that, boys, that's your experience, right? So that's and once you experience that, that's part of your story. Like, you can't tell the story of Boyce Watkins without including some of the stories that happened at Syracuse University. So Syracuse could say, you know what, Boyce, that's kind of tacky. You telling the intricate details of this university, that doesn't make any sense. And I don't think Syracuse has the right to do that, because it's I don't think you can tell somebody what they can and cannot talk about in terms of experiences, and being able to talk about it and write about it in a way where it can be useful to the public. So just as Syracuse can't tell you what to say, I don't think anybody can tell another person, okay, you have these experiences with me, you can't tell anybody anything. So I think it's just like a little slippery slope, and a line that needs to be drawn about what's comfortable for you to disclose about yourself, while at the same time being respectful to other people in your life, because now it's going to be like nobody wants to talk to you because they don't know when you're going to, like, throw them under the bus and say all these things. And I think that was the reason why, I'm going back to Bobby Brown, I think that's the reason why Bobby Brown wrote that tell-all book. Perhaps it was because he felt like all of these stories were being told about him, and he wanted to be able to tell the book from how he saw it and from his perspective, and he named names because
everybody's talking all this stuff about
me.
I had to bring that in. Why don't they just let me live? Go ahead.
Okay. Exactly. I think that's the title of the book. My
prerogative. Was that
my prerogative, right? So I can do what I want to do. And so, maybe Irv Gotti's like, look, it happened. I'm going to write about it. And it seemed like Ashanti's like, yeah, it happened. He wrote about it. That's his story. We ain't been talking about Ashanti in a long time. I don't even know. Has she put out a song since the 90s, since the late 90s?
I think she has, but I don't think anybody's really into Ashanti on that level.
She's probably like, thank you, Irv Gotti.
But you know what? Nobody's
been talking about me.
Well, but first off, let's give her a shout out. I think I saw some some pictures she had taken and whatever. She looks great, for her age. I don't know how old she is. Does anybody know how old Ashanti is? Put it in the chat if you know how old Ashanti is. But I think that just as a moment of just reflection, I think that I'm really happy when artists, talented Black people from the 90s and the early 2000s get their careers resurrected. Now, let's see, she was born in 1980. What was that make her? 42 years old now, and she looks great, at the age of 42, and which is completely inconsistent with that old theory on Kevin Samuels' show where the women over 35 are leftovers and all this other stuff. I never believed that. I think that there are so many beautiful women in their 40s and 50s and everything else, and Black don't crack, and Black women are just the prettiest things ever. So she reflects that, right? And I'm happy for her for that. And you are right, though. I think that if you take it in stride, right? If she isn't spending her time being offended, like, oh, the audacity of him to talk about me, maybe she might stop and say, I'm so glad he's talking about me, right? Like, because there is, and this gets to the economic side of things, and I want to make a couple comments on the economics of all this, the stuff the media isn't talking about. But before I do that, if everybody could do me a favor, please hit the thumbs up button, thumbs up, share, subscribe. You are listening to Pillow Talk with Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. This is my wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins. And Dr. Alicia is a licensed therapist and a full professor of social work. She's a certified clinical trauma professional. And so if you'd like to learn more about the work she does, you can go to coachingwithdralicia.com. That's coachingwithdralicia.com. The URL's on the screen. And also, don't forget that I love to talk about stock market investing, and we trained over 1 million Black people to buy their first share of stock in the Black Business School. I'm really proud of that. And we're going to do an event tomorrow, Tuesday, if you're around, Tuesday, August 30th at 8 p.m. called Stock Market Decoded. And it's a great event for those of you that are trying to really get better at investing, that really want to be prepared and certified to actually train your loved ones on investing. And so if you'd like to join that event, just go to boycewatkins.com and you can actually gain access to the event. It's free to everybody who's in the Black Stock Market program, but everyone else, there is a small fee, but you get to take the certification exam and get a certificate after it's done. All right, so with that said, let's talk about the financial side of this Ashanti and I want to say Ashanti Ja Rule thing, but that's wrong. Ashanti and there's Ashanti and Ja Rule. And remember, I was comparing it to like the Black version of Grease and John Travolta and Olivia Newton. You see the similarity?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can just see that, right? Like, so ain't nothing new under the sun. A lot of these models are replicas of other things that have happened before. But when you get back to Ashanti and Irv Gotti, there's a huge financial undertone to all this. And Irv hit this really well in a very articulate way. So the Shade Room interviewed Irv and said, why do you keep talking about Ashanti? Why do you keep talking about Ashanti? And the first thing he said that I thought was quite intelligent. He said, because of that. And she said, what are you talking about? He said, because you keep asking me. Y'all keep asking me about it. So I'm answering the question, right? Which, that's a good answer, but it's also a little bit of a cop out, right? Because you could just say no comment, right? But he's answering, and that's fine. Then he says something that I thought was really important. He says, I'm doing a documentary. And this Netflix documentary, I believe he said Netflix, on Murder Inc. He said, I can't talk about Murder Inc. and the history of Murder Inc. I can't tell my story without incorporating Ashanti. Ashanti is a big part of Murder Inc.'s history. And so there's a big financial implication to this. And so there's two messages here. Number one, for him, I think a lot of it is about the money. This story is part of his, he now has more wealth because he engaged with Ashanti, right? He has wealth because now he has a story that people will buy. And then also, generally speaking, anybody who connects with a big brand then has a story they can sell. For example, if I went out and let's say I went out and got sexually assaulted by Oprah, not that would be a weird, I know it's a weird visual, but then I'd have this $1 million story I could go sell to media outlets. So there is a huge financial undertone to why these stories get told in a specific way, why these interviews are happening. He has to promote this documentary in order for it to make money. The documentary was purchased by Netflix because he had these stories to tell. And I'm sure they expected him to share the Ashanti story, not just because it's important, but because they know people are going to watch because of that. So what are your thoughts on what I just said?
Okay, so this is the first I'm hearing about this documentary. I must not have been keeping close. I mean, it has definitely piqued my interest. And because that's my prime time back then. So for me, it's going to be a very nostalgic kind of trip down memory lane. What was happening behind the scenes, and nothing is more salacious than a nice turbulent love affair. Arguing over money and arguing over songs and trying to promote your career. I mean, she was on top. What happened to her? Why didn't we hear more music from her? I wanted to see her more than I actually did. And I have that question about a lot of artists, actually. Really good artists that I'm all excited about. They come out with these awesome songs and they have a lot of promotion behind them. And then all of a sudden it's gone. You don't see them anymore. And I don't know what she's been. It's really nice that she's been I think it's really nice that I think she's been still out touring and singing the songs from from back in the day. And I think that's good for her career. So she's still bookable in smaller venues. But why hasn't she made it? As far as I'm concerned, she's just as talented as Beyonce. Why hasn't she made it to the Beyonce status? What happened? How did she fall? What was
that is a good. I mean, that's a question people don't ask a lot, but a lot of people don't know in these industries, favoritism is huge.
What
You
she
know,
messed up. She made a mistake along the way. Something happened in her career where she didn't get to. I mean, if she and Irv Gotti had gotten married, they could have been like the equivalent to Beyonce and Jay-Z. We don't know, but
well,
something happened.
kind of, but not really, because he
I'm
wasn't
gonna
a
be
rap, he
tuning in.
wasn't a rapper. But I get what you.
I guess he's not a
I
rapper,
see him
but
like Dame Dash and Aaliyah. That's what I see.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I see them. Because Dame Dash was, he was outspoken enough to be public, but he was behind the scenes enough to be more of in that, I guess music industry executive kind of category. So he was kind of like a blend, and I think that they were. I think a lot of those guys I feel were kind of emulating the Puffy model. That's except Puffy actually would get on your record, right, and get on stage with you, but he wasn't like sort of the quiet guy that sat behind the scenes. So it's like this interesting blend. And I can say, Dame, I've known Dame for a few years, and I can say, and I don't think Dame will mind me sharing this, but he's still affected by what happened with Aaliyah. It was such a tragic story, and she was so talented. And if you really compare the two, Aaliyah and Ashanti were very similar in terms of their career trajectories at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I'm even thinking about who else came out around that time. I'm thinking about Sierra, right? Sierra, did she come out about that time?
I think she did. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
think she
I
did.
mean, look at Sierra. I don't know what kind of music she's making. She did a
Well,
did a
she's making that billionaire music now because I mean her and Russell Wilson they're gonna hit billionaire status at some point. I think his last contract. What was his last contract for like almost $500 million or something crazy?
Oh my goodness. All right.
Yeah. So Sierra's moved into a whole different tax bracket. She's not in that entertainment level, income level anymore. She's not scrapping to do shows extra 50 grand. Like she's really like they're like corporate now. Like they can go buy, $100 million companies. And I really like that actually. I like seeing them graduate to that space of true wealth. You're not hustling for your dollars anymore. You're making money without working. And so I'm really happy for Sierra. And what I really think people should consider is that it was very intelligent and strategic. For whatever reason, she married Russell. I mean, she probably did. She probably did marry him. A little bit for the money. I mean, the money's hard to ignore, but either way, it was a strategic, intelligent move because she could have been in the gutter with Future. She could still be sitting around, and be one of Future's 18 babies' mamas. But instead, she said, "No, I want to be the wife of a man who is going to represent our family legacy in a way that is very powerful."
Yeah,
And
but
so,
I think that Sierra, I mean, she could have just married Russell Wilson and gone to sleep. I mean, for what
wait,
I
what,
see,
what do you mean, marry Russell Wilson and gone to sleep?
yeah, and just not have just been, she could have just gone away. But I think that she's done a good job still trying to, what I see when I see Sierra is that she's still putting out music. I don't know how successful it is, but she's still putting music out. She's still dancing. She's still doing her thing. It's like she hasn't stopped what she's doing on her own. So it's like she has her own sort of groove that she's in. And it doesn't seem like she's deviated much from, her style. She kind of has that Janet Jackson sort of like new Janet Jackson style. I don't know why. Every time she sings a song and dances, she just reminds me of Janet Jackson. Like,
Well, she's also one of those ageless wonders. Like I mean, if you
mhm,
think about
mhm.
her and we're talking about Ashanti and some of
Yeah.
the others from that era. I mean, they still look great. They're still very talented. They can still drop it to the flow. Like they can do all that stuff. And
The dancer. I don't think Ashanti's much of a dancer, but definitely Sierra. That's her area. She's a dancer.
yeah, yeah, and I really think that that
Mhm.
there's something that to the extent that we pay attention to entertainers, we probably pay too much attention to them to be honest with you, because I think to me the real celebrities of the Black community are the people that are listening to this podcast, the ones that are raising the kids and working hard and building a good future for your family. Not just the people that white people put on TV. But at the same time, though, when I look at Sierra, think about this, right? She could have went through door number one and been one of Future's baby's mamas, with a long list of problems, financial and otherwise. But instead she went in this other direction where she chose legacy and damn near royalty. I mean, she's become royalty.
Mhm,
You know,
and then
that,
she comes out with a song called "Level Up," and I was like, "Woo!"
yeah, level up,
I
level
did.
up, level up. A great song, a great
I
song. You
love
know,
that song.
yeah. Oh, it's one of my favorite. You know, it's literally I can't name any Sierra song other than Level Up. To be honest with you, because it's really that first little part, level up, level up, level up. Like, you know, and I'm like,
We've
yes,
heard a lot of her songs.
yes. And so I think the lesson really for anybody listening is like in your life, find your way to level up. You know, get around people that are
Mhm.
gonna level you up. Everybody type level up in the chat. Like we gonna level up. Like don't level down. I know people want you to stay on the floor, stay on the ground, and you just think you who you think you are. Well, I'm gonna tell you who I think I am. I'm gonna level up and show you who I know I am. You know, and because the other thing too is that when you think about her transition, okay, she had that time where she that probably dated some guys that she maybe regrets, but it's like okay, now I'm 30. Now my life choices have to evolve with the stage of my life that I'm in. And I want to point to another example. Look at Jay-Z. Jay-Z is leveled up. Jay-Z is a 53-year-old man who wears suits every day and is married to a great woman and runs corporations. He could be like that guy who's still thinking that it's 1992, wearing wife beaters and football jerseys, trying to keep up with 22-year-old rappers. Like he really could be doing that. He could really be trying to act like he's younger than what he actually is, and I don't think that that's a winning formula. When you get older, be proud of being older. Like stop acting like you 18. You're not 18 anymore. And you don't even want to be 18 no more. I think that there's a lot of class that comes with being like that sophisticated, intelligent, wise, wealthy 40, 45, 50-year-old man, a 50-year-old woman. And I think our community needs to see that as much as we see, some of these Peter Pan Negroes who literally still think it's 1998. It ain't 98 no more. What are your thoughts?
We all need to level up. Like how inspiring is this? All of us need to take some time and just level up. And really, I mean, that's in a lot of us have leveled up. I think even just like look at me and you boys. I mean, what if all of the women you dated before me, there was pictures, it was posted on the internet, and they were like, look at Boyce and this lady, look at Boyce and that lady, and
Ooh,
I mean,
oh Lord.
how would you feel about explaining all of that? How would I feel about explaining all of that? So, I mean, I think sometimes we got to be a little compassionate for celebrities. I mean, just all of y'all in the chat, what happens who are listening to us today? How would you feel if everybody you've ever dated, someone took pictures of and kept asking you about what happened with this person, what happened with that person? I mean, you pretty soon,
Mm,
I don't know, in that moment, I don't know if you're proud of everybody you used to date, but it was just where you were in that moment. So,
yeah.
you could think about. I think I leveled up. What did you do? You think you leveled up, boys?
Oh, I know I leveled up. I know
Okay.
I married the girl of my dreams. I know I leveled up, and I can tell you, it's you're right. I mean, to give people a taste of what it means when you kind of when you are a little more public. It's like imagine if people that didn't even know you, from high school, are suddenly on VH1 talking about you as if they know you well, or somebody, and that was, I can even say that even, in my experience, I remember I would start getting Facebook friend requests from people who'd be like, yeah, you remember me from such and such? I'd be like, I have no recollection of you whatsoever. But I know that they would know me because they'd be like, oh yeah, we were in Mrs. So and so's class and da, da, da. And I'd be like, I don't remember having one conversation with you or anything. And so what'll happen is, because I think that what happens is that especially with big major celebs, I'm not a big celeb, but for the major celebs, I've noticed that like their experiences are much stickier than everybody else's. Meaning that for most regular people, if you argue with somebody, or if you have a conversation with somebody, or you talk to the barber about getting your hair cut, or you go to the grocery store and talk to the clerk, they're not going to remember you 5 years from now. They're not going to have any recollection of that experience. But if you're Will Smith and you went and you ordered the cheeseburger at McDonald's, then that McDonald's person is going to remember that story forever. And in their mind, they're going to feel like I have a Will Smith story that I can repeat 1,000 times. So, and imagine this happening a couple hundred times a day with all the people that you meet. That's a lot of weight to carry. you know. And I think that's why also with some celebrities, you'll notice they go out of their way to be extra nice to everybody because they know that people are going to carry these stories for life.
Yeah, you catch them at a low moment. People be taking pictures and recording you, and everybody can see you in your low moment.
Yeah, here's why so and so's an asshole, and you might just be having a bad day. But yeah, that's the tough part. You really can't have a bad day. And I know that in the space where I am known, where people know me, it requires me to really be conscious of every little thing I do. You know, you were at the Power Networking conference where every single person we saw knew who I was. So that meant every conversation I had to think about what I was saying and how I said it, and my personal approach is I'm going to be super nice to every single person that supports me and as many people as I meet because I do want to leave a favorable impression. I do want you to feel better because we met, and but it gets draining. It's very very draining, you know. So anyway, that's enough of that yapping. I want to say thank you all for hanging out with us today for today's Pillow Talk. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins. This is my wife, Dr. Alicia Watkins. I have, if you want a free e-copy of my book, Financial Lovemaking, you can go to boyceandalicia.com. And also, Alicia, she's building this database of Black singles around the country. If you want to join that database, you can join for free at boyceandalicia.com. And we'll also send you some free information on particularly areas related to love and money. And last but not least, if you'd like to see what Dr. Alicia does as a relationship therapist, coach, etc., you can go to coachingwithdralicia.com. That URL is on the screen. So I want to say thank you all very much for hanging out with us. If you could, please hit the thumbs up, share, subscribe button, all that good stuff. And I want to say thank you to my wife for joining me for an awesome conversation. Thank you, baby.
You're welcome.
All right. So everybody, please have a good day, and we will talk to you soon. Take care now. Peace.